Hello, yes, hi, and welcome to the Dark Knight Conspiracies, episode 21, Pearl Harbor. Thank the vets. Well, folks, we all know today is December 7th, and we also know this is the same day back in history where Pearl Harbor was attacked by the Japanese. So I'd like to take this moment to salute and thank all our veterans out there. I ask everybody out there who's listening to this, if you come across a veteran or see a veteran in a diner, coffee shop, please pay for their meals, pay for their coffee. It's the least we owe them. So this is the episode I've been promising everybody. This is what I call woo woo in the conspiracy realm. So we're going to go back in time and we're going to look at Pearl Harbor and what happened back then because there's been many conspiracy theories surrounding this. And since then, a lot of information has come out. Again, I tell people do your own research, do your own discernment, come to your own conclusions. But one thing, there's a common theme in what we're going to talk about. Is if you don't learn from history, you're bound to repeat it. And we're going to see this happening in this broadcast. From Pearl Harbor to, say, a current event. Not real current, but you'll understand what I'm talking about. So let's get to the getting. And again, I'll leave all the links in my description, and I suggest you do your own reading, do your own discernment on this stuff. So this was an article posted in November 29, 2011. Declassified memo hinted of 1941 Hawaii attack. Now you read through the article, and the conspiracy theory is FDR had prior knowledge that Pearl Harbor was going to happen and did nothing about it. And one of the reasons, conspiracy theory wise, was at the time this was all going on in Europe, and the American population wasn't in favor of us going to war. He didn't have public support. So, numerous reports, again, you can find debunking on all this stuff, and you can find stuff that say, no, this is how it happened. FDR failed to act on supposed tips. And one of the tips was we had decoded their secret messages. So this is a declassified memo from the Office of Naval Intelligence, and there's links within this article. And says the Japanese were collecting detailed technical information that would be specifically used by its Navy to collect and analyze information. They were building a network of spies through their U.S. embassies and consulates. Now, why is that important today? Well, I'll tell you why it's important. Because you got the same thing going on with China right now. This country is infested with China spies, people that, according to DNI Ratcliffe, have been bribed, blackmailed, and are compromised within our U.S. government. That would technically make them foreign adversaries operating on U.S. soil. Now, why is that important? Well, that goes back to Executive Order 13848, which I've talked about in several episodes. But let's stick to the past here. So, you read through the article, and there's some books that have been written about it. And there claims to be signals that led up to Japan's attack, and the government chose to ignore it. So many mistakes through so many levels of Washington said, surely some things never change. His book also reveals another blockbuster moment. On the night of Pearl Harbor attack, FDR and his war cabinet considered declaring war on all three Axis powers, Japan, Germany, and Italy. But in the end, FDR only targeted Japan. So this is just one example. So now we're going to get to which I consider the blockbuster article of this show. Freedom of Information Act files prove FDR had foreknowledge of Pearl Harbor. Now, this is by Robert B. Stinnett, and he was interviewed by Douglas Sirigano. And you go through this, and this is very lengthy, but I implore you to read this, because it talks about exactly what happened and why FDR did what he did. So some interesting segments in this article. And that Thomas Dewey, who was running for president against Roosevelt, found out about America's ability to intercept Japan's radio messages and thought this knowledge would enable him to defeat the popular FDR. Now, something I should point out, I'm sure most people know, but FDR is the only president that held 3 terms, because he declared war in his second term. Some people speculate the reason why he did what he did was he had to stay in power. And the only way you could do that was by declaring war on another nation. Kind of similar what Trump might do with this foreign election interference. Have to see how it plays out. So then we go through some of the interview stuff here. And so now we start to get into the interview. And Stinnett says he was in the Navy in World War II. He was on an aircraft carrier with George Bush, believe it or not. He wrote a book about it. Yes, that's right. So we were always told that Japanese targets, the warships, were sighted by U.S. submarines. We were never told about breaking the Japanese codes. So in '82, he read a book by a Professor Prang called At Dawn We Slept. And in that book, it says there was secret U.S. Navy monitoring station at Pearl Harbor intercepting Japanese naval codes. Now, I want to point, most people have probably watched the movie Midway with Charlton Heston. In that movie, in the beginning, it shows Charlton Heston goes down to a deep bunker where they're trying to decipher Japanese intercepts that they're transmitting over the radio waves. Just a point I want to put out because the movies always show us some truth. So he says he went over to Hawaii and confirmed that there was a station there and that's what they were doing. And he interviewed some of these people. And if you go through this, until the Freedom of Information Act, okay, yeah. Is this statement true? Well, if America was intercepting and decoding Japan's military messages, then Washington and FBI knew that Japan was going to attack Pearl Harbor. And he replied, absolutely. You feel it's as simple as that? That's right. That was their plan. It was their overt act of war plan that I talk about in my book that President Roosevelt adopted on October 7th, 1940. So then it goes into what Roosevelt knew, who he shared it with. Again, I invoke you to read this whole article and this interview. It is astounding. Now, what this leads me to, again, if you don't learn from history, you're bound to repeat your mistakes. And look, I'm not going to make excuses for FDR. We all know Hitler wouldn't have stopped with Europe. At some point, it would have came to our shores. But at that point, he would have conquered so many countries. We had to do something, which was why we had the rush to develop the nuclear bomb, the atomic bomb. We had to have a deterrent. Hitler was working on the same stuff, but not with such importance that we had. He and his people, they were focused on some woo-woo stuff, and I'm going to just come out and say it. They were more focused on alien technology. And let's not fool ourselves. We all know Roswell. We all know that story, right? I don't have to rehash that. If Roswell happened here, chances are it happened over there, and Hitler had, let's just say, the same proof that we had. Who knows? But it was no secret among the world powers what was going on. So let me get back to FDR. And again, I just want to point out, folks, in case you haven't noticed, he's a Democrat. Okay? Nothing has changed with these people. So this was an executive order he signed in 6102 on April 5th, 1933. He forbid, during the Great Recession, for people, it's called hoarding, but basically what it was, he forbid people to possess gold. Gold coin, gold bullion, gold certificates. They confiscated all this stuff. Of course, they agreed to pay the people for this gold. And I want you to think about this. This went on until Gerald Ford signed a bill legalizing private ownership of gold. When? 1974. So for 41 years in this country, it was illegal to own gold. Go down the rabbit hole with that stuff. You could talk about Nixon taking us off the gold standard. Again, Democrats, New World Order, central banks, go for it. And you can read the rest of. There were prosecutions of this stuff. $10,000 fine. Days in jail. They were jailing people for owning gold, which back in biblical times, legal to own, legal to have, it was money. It was a payment. You were basically being jailed for owning this stuff. Uh, I don't know what I gotta do to wake people up. So now, what does FDR have to do with, let's just say, current times? Well, let's go to 9/11. August '01 brief is said to warn of attack plans. Again, this was published after the fact. And again, I encourage you to read this article. I'm just going to highlight a point here. Actually, there's a couple of points. So, the actual warning came to President Bush on August 6, 2001. Joint Congressional Committee last year alluded to a closely held intelligence report that month about the threat of an attack by Al Qaeda. An official confirmed an account by the Associated Press on Friday saying that the report was in fact part of the president's briefing. So he was briefed prior to September. Now here's the interesting part. A classified memorandum sent around July 4th, 2001 to Condoleezza Rice, the president's national security advisor from the counterterrorism group run by Richard A. Clarke, described a series of steps it said the White House had taken to put the nation on heightened terrorist alert. Among the steps, the memorandum said all 56 FBI field offices were also tasked in late June to go to increased surveillance and contact with informants related to known or suspected terrorists in the United States. Now here's my question. We all know about the Minnesota man that was arrested for flight training in the U.S. We also know all these terrorists were trained in the U.S. What happened? How did this not get caught? I'll leave you to your own conclusions. I encourage you to read this stuff and don't take my word for it. Go research it yourself. History proves past. And I'll bring up JFK. It was a known fact he was going to dismantle the clown organization, as I call it, because he didn't trust the intelligence he was getting from them. We're seeing this time and time again. We don't learn. Maybe normal people learn. Maybe people in the And the groups, I guess, want this to happen. They don't have to learn. This is their plan. Go figure. And what did we get out of World War II? Well, I'll tell you what we got. And again, I'll give you some names. You go research it. We got Operation Paperclip. We got Operation Mockingbird. And we probably got a few other things out of there. So lastly, I'll leave you with this. And I touched in it in my previous episode, but it kind of coincides with today. I didn't show it in my last episode, but I'm going to show it now. So this is the director of the Clown Intelligence Agency. This is her Twitter feed. Now, I wish I would have taken a picture prior to all the stuff going around. Multiple sources are confirming that she's out of the picture, whether she's in Gitmo or in protective custody or she is deceased. Again, I can't verify. I can't vet it. I can't verify it. But multiple people are starting to report this now. Who has a background of the Twin Towers with a plane going in? I'll leave it for you to decide. So this is my woo-woo episode, as I call it. I'm sure I'll get some interesting comments, hopefully, about it. How crazy I am. But today, I just want to salute our veterans and remember the sacrifice that they gave at Pearl Harbor. They didn't have a chance. They didn't know. And God bless the survivors that came out of that. And I implore everybody, if you see a veteran, buy them their lunch, their dinner. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. We can't have that. We got lockdowns. Buy their carry-out. Buy their coffee carry-out. Let them know that you're proud of their service. Because God only knows they need to hear that. They feel forgotten just like all of us. And that's the show for tonight. So until next time, stay strong, stay vigilant, stay safe. Same bat time, same bat channel. Good night, everybody.